Imagine being saved by a stranger on a paradisiacal beach and discovering that this rescue would change the course of your life forever. A young aristocrat runs away from an arranged marriage and finds love where she least expected it, in the arms of a humble fisherman. But what if this love was surrounded by secrets, a powerful mother, a passionate friend, and an engagement about to be revealed? What is the limit between what we are willing to lose for love and what we are forced to hide to survive? On the Sapphire Coast, nothing is as it seems, and every choice can change everything. Stay until the end, because the outcome will challenge everything you believe about social barriers and the power of the heart. The sound of waves crashing against the rocks was almost mesmerizing that morning on the Sapphire Coast. The sun rose shyly over the horizon, dyeing the sky orange and pink, while Raoul adjusted the fishing nets on his small boat. He had barely begun the day's journey when he heard a scream from the water. His body reacted before his mind could process. "Hold on tight! I am going!" he shouted, throwing himself into the sea. A young woman struggled desperately against the waves. Every movement was frantic, but it seemed that fatigue was beginning to overwhelm her. Raoul swam hard, his experience at sea being put to the test, and managed to reach her before she sank completely. "Hold on to me!" he ordered, his voice firm but reassuring. The young girl, her face pale and her eyes wide with fear, clung to him tightly. Raoul carried her to the beach, his arms almost shaking from the effort, but without wavering. Once he reached the sand, he gently placed her on the ground and tried to control his breathing. "You're safe now. You can breathe." His voice was a mix of relief and concern. She coughed a few times before managing to respond, her voice shaking. "Thank you. I thought I wouldn't be able to come back." Raoul observed her closely, noticing her unusual appearance. Her fair skin, wet blonde hair, and intense blue eyes set her apart from the locals. There was something about her that he couldn't quite put his finger on, but it was intriguing. "What were you doing so far away?" he asked, his tone serious but not accusatory. "I just wanted to swim for a bit and ended up getting too far away." She looked away, clearly uncomfortable with the explanation. Raoul knew there was more to the answer, but decided not to press her. "Well, you were lucky today. The sea does not usually forgive distractions." She nodded, still trying to compose herself, but she noticed something in Raoul's expression that seemed different from any other man she had ever met. "What is your name?" she asked, her curiosity sincere. "Raoul." "And you?" "Clara." He tilted his head as if memorizing her name. After a moment of silence, Raoul spoke. "Tomorrow I'm going fishing very early. If you want to really see the sea, come. Maybe you'll discover something about yourself too." Clara hesitated. There was something about Raoul's calm confidence that disarmed her, but she also felt that there was much more behind that simple invitation. "Why not? It could be interesting." Raoul smiled slightly before getting up. "Rest. You will need energy." As he walked away, Clara sat on the sand, watching the sea and feeling that something had changed inside her. I couldn't explain what, but Costa Sapphire seemed to have more secrets than I imagined, and Raoul was certainly one of them. The sun was still rising when Clara arrived at the beach. Raoul was already preparing the boat, his agile hands working as if they were part of an ancient dance. He looked at her, surprised, but with a slight smile on his face. "I thought you weren't going to show up," he commented, tying a rope with precision. "And miss the opportunity to discover more about the sea?" Clara replied, with genuine curiosity. Raoul gestured for her to get on the boat. As he helped her, she noticed the warmth and firmness in his hands, something that seemed to reflect his character. During the first minutes at sea, the silence was filled only by the sound of the waves and the boat's engine. It was a comfortable silence, but Clara soon broke the tranquility. "Is the sea always like this, calm but unpredictable?" she asked, observing the horizon. Raoul laughed lightly, his gaze fixed on the waters. The sea never lies. He is what he is. It's up to you to respect it, understand its signs. He paused before looking directly at her. Maybe you'll discover more than you expect. Clara felt the weight of Raoul's words. It seemed like he talked about more than just the ocean. When he started to loosen the nets, she couldn't resist her curiosity. "Did you always know you wanted to be a fisherman?" he asked. "Not always." He pulled one of the nets with effort. "As a child, I thought I could do anything, but life teaches you to find where you truly belong." She was silent, pondering those words. There was a simplicity to Raoul that she admired, but also a depth that challenged her. Clara got up to help pull the nets, something that clearly surprised Raoul. "I didn't expect you to want to get involved," he commented, with an almost mischievous smile. "I like learning," Clara replied, while pulling with difficulty. "And I think you have a lot to teach." Raoul watched her, clearly impressed, but said nothing. As the work continued, they began to share stories. He told of his humble childhood, his adventures at sea, while Clara, still evasive, gave answers that only hinted at her former life. "It seems like you like to hide who you really are," Raoul commented with a challenging tone. Clara looked at him, surprised. "And you seem to like to tease," she replied, laughing. "Maybe because the sea taught me to look for what's behind appearances," he replied, with a twinkle in his eye. At that moment, Clara knew that Raoul was not just an ordinary man. He was someone who saw beyond the obvious, and that intrigued her deeply. The sound of the breeze sweeping across the sapphire coast accompanied Clara as she settled on the balcony of the inn where she was staying. She watched Sophia, the young employee, sweep the entrance with quick and precise gestures. When Sophia looked up and saw Clara, she hesitated, but smiled shyly. "Good morning. Can I help with something?" asked Sophia nervously, holding the broom tightly. Clara smiled back, trying to look relaxed. "Actually, I thought we could talk, if you have a moment." "I'm not very good at keeping quiet." Sophia laughed lightly, visibly more relaxed. "It's rare to see tourists here wanting to talk to someone like me. They are usually too busy looking at the sea or taking photos." There was a hint of bitterness in his tone, but Clara realized that it came from long experience. "Maybe I'm not like other tourists," Clara replied genuinely. "And you don't look like just any employee." Sophia's curiosity was immediately piqued, and she hesitantly sat down next to Clara. "What do you want to know?" she asked, suspicious but interested. As the conversation flowed, Clara discovered that Sophia had a big dream: to win over Raoul. She spoke with a sparkle in her eyes about how kind, strong and dedicated he was, but soon her tone changed, filled with insecurity. "But Raoul never looks at me like that. As something more. I think I'm just a friend to him." Sophia looked away, trying to hide the pain in her voice. Clara felt her heart sink. She wanted to say something comforting, but the words seemed to slip out. Finally, he ventured. "Sometimes we just need to show a side that no one has seen yet. Maybe you'll surprise him." Sophia laughed, shaking her head. "You're good at this, you know. Make me believe in the impossible." Before Clara could respond, Raoul appeared on the balcony, which made Sophia's face light up immediately. He was distracted, but when he saw Clara, his eyes locked onto hers. "Clara, I was looking for you. Want to go for a walk?" asked Raoul, ignoring Sophia's presence. Sophia, who initially seemed excited by his presence, withered at the interaction. Clara noticed the young woman's discomfort and hesitated for a moment before responding. "Of course, Raoul. Just a moment." Clara turned to Sophia and whispered, "Remember, everything starts with courage." As she left with Raoul, Sophia stayed behind, staring at the sand. her heart sinking with the growing suspicion that Clara was taking the place she always wanted. Night fell softly over the sapphire coast, and Clara walked along the beach, following the soft light of a small fire. Raoul was next to his boat, carefully arranging the fish he had prepared. The aroma of herbs and lemon filled the air. When he saw her approach, he smiled slightly, without hiding the joy in his eyes. It arrived at the right time. "Dinner is almost ready," he said, pointing to the blankets spread out on the sand, decorated simply but with a unique charm. Clara smiled, enchanted by Raoul's dedication. She sat and watched as he finished the preparations. The fire crackled, casting dancing shadows across their faces. "Do you cook as well as you fish?" she asked, trying to ease the tension she felt. "Find out for yourself," Raoul replied, carefully serving a dish. "But I warn you, cooking is my secret passion." While they ate, the conversation flowed naturally. Clara felt like she could be herself with Raoul, but there was something stuck in her throat, a truth that she feared revealing. After a few laughs, she took a deep breath. Decided. "Raoul, I need to tell you something." Her voice shook slightly, but she held his gaze. "About who I really am." Raoul stopped eating and leaned forward, attentive. "You can trust me, Clara. Whatever it is, I want to hear it." But before she could continue, insecurity overcame her. She looked away, feigning interest in the fire. "It's nothing. I just wanted to say thank you for tonight. It's special." Raoul studied her for a moment, but didn't insist, just smiled. "You don't need to thank me. It's also special to me." As silence settled in, the two seemed to understand that words were not necessary at that moment. Raoul extended his hand, and Clara hesitantly took it. The touch was warm and comforting. However, not far away, Sophia watched everything. From where he stood, the pain in his heart was almost unbearable. When Raoul and Clara exchanged intense looks, Sophia turned and returned to the inn, her eyes teary. Later, Raoul and Clara walked along the beach. He talked about how much the sea had taught him about patience and acceptance, but Clara could only think about how this simple and sincere man was about to discover the truth she was hiding. The day started off busy on the Sapphire Coast. Clara was on the inn's balcony, her thoughts revolving around the previous night. She knew she needed to tell Raoul who she really was, but the fear of his reaction paralyzed her. As he gathered his courage, he heard the distant sound of a helicopter. The noise grew louder until an elegant vehicle landed on the beach, kicking up sand and attracting curious looks. Clara ran downstairs, her heart racing. When he saw who was getting out of the helicopter, his hands shook. It was Helena, his mother, accompanied by bodyguards and with her imposing expression. "Clara, what does that mean?" Helena asked, her tone firm and authoritative. "Escaping your responsibilities? Do you have any idea of the scandal you caused?" Raoul, who was unloading his boat nearby, noticed the commotion and approached. He looked at Clara, then at Helena, trying to understand the situation. "Who are you?" Raoul asked, confused but with a calm tone. Helena looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. "I am Helena, Marchioness of Montferrat, and this is my daughter, Clara, Countess of Montferrat." The silence that followed was piercing. Raoul took a step back as if he had been hit. "Countess?" His voice was low, incredulous. "Clara, is it true?" Clara tried to hold back her tears as she nodded. "Yes, Raoul. I should have told you before, but I was afraid. Scared of losing what we have." Raoul crossed his arms, disappointment evident on his face. "Afraid of what? Let me know you're rich, that it belongs to a world completely different from mine." "It's not that," Clara interrupted, her voice full of emotion. "I never felt part of that world. Here, with you, is where I feel free." Before Raoul could respond, Sophia appeared, watching the scene with wide eyes. She had heard everything and finally understood what was happening. "So that's it," she murmured more to herself. "Clara, you lied, not just for Raoul but for all of us." Raoul turned to Sophia, his face full of conflict. "Sophia, She raised her hand, stopping him. "Raoul, if you have feelings for her, there's nothing I can do, but know that I would never have hidden who I am from you." She looked at Clara, her eyes teary. "I hope you know what you're doing." Before anyone could respond, Helena took a step forward. "Clara, that's enough. You have an engagement to Prince Alexander, a future prepared for you. Go home now." Clara looked up, determined. "No, Mother, I never wanted this engagement. I don't want a life full of duties without love. Raoul is the one I choose, even if it means abandoning everything." Helena remained motionless, surprised by her daughter's firmness. Raoul, upon hearing those words, slowly approached. "Are you really willing to give up everything for me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Clara held his hands, looking deeply into his eyes. "Yes, because you are all that matters." Raoul took a deep breath before turning to Helena. He did something unexpected. He knelt before her. "Marquise Helena, I love your daughter. I have nothing to offer other than my dedication and respect, but I promise to make you happy. Please give me your blessing." Helena observed the scene with a mixture of incredulity and admiration. After a long silence, she sighed. "I never imagined I would see something like this. Raoul, you have more courage and dignity than many nobles I know. Clara—" She paused, her voice softening. "If this is what you really want, then you have my blessing." Clara and Raoul hugged, tears rolling down their faces. Sophia, from a distance, watched the scene with a mixture of pain and acceptance. Finally, she approached. "Raoul, take care of her. And Clara, I hope you know how much this means to him," Sophia said, her voice low but sincere. The next day, Clara and Raoul began to organize their lives together. She decided to use part of her fortune to improve the living conditions of the Sapphire Coast's fishermen. Raoul, beside her, seemed even more in love. The community came together for a simple but love-filled wedding. The sun was setting while Clara and Raoul exchanged vows on the beach, surrounded by the sea that had brought them together. Sophia, now a friend, smiled sincerely, ready to start a new chapter of her own life.